Hey, Diana, did you know that getting focused is simple?
Mark, that's the dumbest thing you've ever said.
Ladies and gentlemen, jurists and just curious, welcome to the Successful Barrister Podcast. Here you'll learn about marketing, management, and life skills for lawyers that probably won't get you disbarred. Hosted by Marc Whitehead, a seasoned lawyer who remembers when fax machines were cutting edge, and Diana Berry, attorney, COO, and the brains behind the scenes. Together, they are the legal world's most dynamic duo since statutes met regulations. So if you're looking to build a practice, not a prison, you're in the right place. Welcome to the Successful Barrister, where legal legends are made.
And welcome to the Successful Barrister Podcast, the podcast for lawyers about marketing, management, and life skills that probably won't get you disbarred. I'm Marc Whitehead, your host, alongside here with my co-host, Diana Berry, the COO of my law firm and my right hand. Hey, Diana, what's going on?
Hey, Mark. I'm excited about today's podcast.
You're excited.
These are my favorite ones.
Okay, so see, these are the ones that I kind of dread because this is going to be a therapy session for me today.
Which I enjoy.
Yeah, I know, because you get to pick me apart. So here's the problem we were discussing in prior to coming on air. I have not been very focused lately. I have not been very productive. Not that I haven't been busy. I've been extremely busy, but busy does not equal being productive. Mm-hmm. So I've been busy doing a lot of stupid crap that I probably shouldn't be doing. And my mind is scattered and my mind is not focused. And as we sit here today in mid-November, mm-hmm. This is always the time of year that I think I always try to get focused because I start planning, budgeting for the new year and trying to get plans for 2025 lockdown. And I'm having a hard time.
And I think this happens with everybody, though, right? It is the 11th month of the year, and everyone's kind of run down, your energy's down, and everyone's getting ready for the holidays, however you choose to spend those. And it's very natural. So let's just, we appreciate your vulnerability, Mark, with us and our listeners. And I think you're not alone.
I know. So I can definitely say my energy is down. My focus is down. So as I tend to do when I get in these little funks, I start looking for resources. So I'll go into my library and I have picked out, and as we typically do in a podcast, we typically bring in a book that we've read. Now, I think I've read this one. You have not. Mm-hmm. The book that I looked at is The 5 Choices, The Path to Extraordinary Productivity, which is written by who? Kogon, Merrill, and Rinne, I believe is how it pronounces. And this is a book, this is not an assigned book. I usually have a lot of books that were assigned by Atticus this was not. This was just one that I just sort of picked up randomly. I think I just liked the cover. And I read it a couple of years ago, and I'm like, well, that's an interesting book. And what it really is, it's a takeoff of Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, mm-hmm. is what it is. But it's a book about productivity and the 5 choices. So I flipped through it in preparation for today's podcast. And quite frankly, I don't think I want to talk about all 5 choices because they didn't all strike home with me, but I think about 3, maybe 4 of them did. So we're going to try to incorporate this into our therapy session today.
Okay.
So you can talk me out of my malaise, talk me out of my funk, and get me going. Now, I'll say this is prime time because as we sit here on Tuesday afternoon, tomorrow you and I are getting on a plane, mm-hmm. flying to Orlando for the Atticus Summit.
Very excited.
Which I've just was looking earlier today at the list of speakers. So, day one is always about motivation. So they're going to try to pump us up on day one with all these motivational type presentations. And then day 2 is typically more about implementation and execution, coming up with your 90-day plan. How are you going to take what you've learned at the summit and implement it? So I'm trying to get geared up. I'm trying to get
the mental thing first.
Right. I'm trying to get myself in the right frame of mind in today's therapy session. So when we hit Atticus tomorrow, Thursday, Friday, I can get the most out of it. So we can, come back, get our 2025 plan working, become productive. So one of the I think the last topics in the 5 choices had to do with your energy and your energy level, and I'm going to bump that up to the top.
Okay.
So I think that's the first thing that we're going to need to talk about.
Your energy.
We're talking about energy a little bit. So when we get back from the break, we're going to talk about energy and how to get yourself pumped up.
This podcast is sponsored by Marc Whitehead Associates, a national disability benefits law firm. Marc Whitehead runs a firm of over 60 dedicated people whose mission is to make a difference in the lives of our injured and disabled clients. Marc represents disabled claimants in Social Security disability, private disability insurance, and veterans disability claims in all 50 states. Marc Whitehead is double board certified in both Social Security disability law and personal injury trial law. Marc has litigated disability cases in over 40 states and counting and can help your clients too. Stop throwing your phone calls away. Call Marc Whitehead at 701-VIP-LEAD. That's 701-VIP-LEAD. Or visit our website at disabilitydenials.com. Referral fees are paid in all jurisdictions where it is permitted. Refer us your disability cases today and know that your clients will be in good hands.
All right, so Diana, today we're talking about the path to extraordinary productivity, the 5 choices, of which we're probably only going to touch on 3. Before the break, we were talking about my apparently lack of energy over the last few weeks.
I didn't say that. You did, though.
I was. Well, I know. We were talking. I was, quite frankly, complaining. I was complaining.
You're aware.
I'm aware that my energy level has been down. And as I go back and think about it, there's a couple of things. Number one, physically, I think I've kind of prided myself over time, over the past 3 or 4 years, of taking good care of myself physically, as I am now approaching. Next week will be my 58th birthday.
Wow.
Wow.
Happy early birthday.
Thank you. But I will say over the last 2 months, I've kind of let my physical activity slip. So that's the first thing, is that I have, that has contributed to my lack of focus, I think, is that my physical fitness has slipped over the last couple of months for a variety of reasons. Coming to school, starting back, just a lot of things going on in my life that just are not jiving well with keeping up with a regular exercise routine. For some reason, also, I haven't been sleeping well lately. And sleep is such an important part of your mental focus. Not really quite sure why that is. And the two may go hand in hand, the lack of exercise and the lack of sleep. Those two could go hand in hand. And then finally, I think, and this is, I'm going to do a little quote from the book here, says, you can feel your mental energy ebbing away as you deal with trivial stuff.
Yeah.
And then the book goes on to say, to rise above the chaos and do great work, which is what we want to do, the author argues that there are 5 choices that you have to make. And number 1 is get rid of the trivial stuff. And I think lately I have been focused on trivial things to the detriment of things, the bigger picture.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And sometimes it's my fault, and sometimes I let other people steal my time. I noticed today on my calendar, somebody stuck an interview on my calendar without asking me. And quite frankly, it's not a high-level position in the firm, and I can't, for the life of me, can't figure out why I'm in this interview.
I told that person that they could put that on your
Why
calendar.
do I have to be interviewing this person? Not that everybody's not important in the firm, but, you know, there's certain levels that I need to be involved with. I don't really know why I'm on that.
You know, I think that's a couple of things that you've said, and I'll address this one first. I think in the past, historically, you have cared a lot about this position. It is one that is near and dear to your heart. And I think the firm secondarily overly relies on your ability to be Marc in these interviews, and terrifying. And no one in the firm successfully, I won't call out Leena here, successfully challenges or channels that inner Marc as well as obviously the real Marc.
So this is where I have become a choke point, because everybody in the firm believes that I'm the soothsayer when it comes to interviews, and I can get people within the rules that we are allowed to interview people, I can get people to spill the beans, where most other people feel that they cannot do that. So they always want me in the interview because somehow I can always get it out of people.
But now that we know...
And I think that's just years of me trying a lot of lawsuits and doing a lot of cross-examinations.
Very good point. And there's no one in the firm that has that experience. I mean, not to be very real about that. So I think now we have to learn how to be independent in our personnel decision making. And I think you have to allow us to make a few mistakes about things that we maybe should have caught in that final in-person interview that we just didn't have the knowledge. Going back to a couple of other things that you've said about exercise and sleep, I think that that's a great correlation, because I hadn't made that correlation in my head about what's going on with you. We've talked for the last couple of weeks a lot about your general, just how ennui. Can I use the word ennui? About just how you are.
You better define it, because I don't know what that means.
I don't know. Inside Out 2 helped me with that word.
Haven't seen that one yet. Haven't seen it yet.
So I think that's great. You did not want to go to Pilates with me this morning, though.
I was busy. Sorry. All right. So back to something useful to our listeners. So we're talking about productivity. So obviously, to be productive, you need to have your energy level, as high as you can get it. And what is a drag on your energy level? Poor sleep, poor exercise, and dealing with a lot of trivial crap that probably doesn't rise to your level. Okay, so that's number one. Number two, it's about making good decisions. We've done several podcasts where the whole making good choices theme has come up. But the decisions you make every day, I'm going to quote the book again. It says, the decisions you make every day, you face an overwhelming number of decisions. And how you deal with all of those decisions, and whether you choose to be the one that actually makes those decisions, i.e., or delegating those decisions down, can affect your productivity. So this is another thing that I see, that constantly I wonder why I have to make all of the decisions that people bring to me. Just today, people have been bringing me, it's not even 11 o'clock yet. And people have been bringing me things to decide. Mark, do you want to do this? Do you want to do that? Do you want to do this? Do you want to do that? Why do I have to make all of these decisions? Because I certainly, in my opinion, I delegate the authority down to people to make those decisions, and I'm happy to live with their decisions, but maybe I haven't instilled the confidence in them to make those decisions. Therefore, they feel they still have to come to me on things. And it becomes a mental drain to constantly have to make decision after decision after decision.
I think that's absolutely true. And I think that you have to be consistent as the visionary with allowing them to have that. If you're going to delegate certain things to people, then I think that we always have to be consistent in that delegation. And that can be hard sometimes, obviously, because it's, how do you set up that communication back and forth that you are still in the know without decisions? And I think that, there's a crazy statistic about how many decisions people have to make these days. It's, decision paralysis. When you go to Starbucks, just order coffee. What size? With or without milk? What kind of milk? Oat milk? And then, do you want with bone, without?
Can I just have a frickin' cup of coffee, please?
Please just give me a cup of coffee. But no, I don't need to make all these decisions before I even, again.
And then you have to learn a new language, venti and grande. Tall and grande. I don't know what any of those mean. How about small, medium, and large? Please. Yes. Thank you very much.
Yes. And hopefully that's acceptable to the Starbucks barista. But, I do think that is decision paralysis can be very, and those two go hand in hand with what you were talking about with the trivial that you have to make. Sometimes that can be easier, right? Like if you are in your place of where you are with your energy, the trivial decisions can be easier, right? Like, a small coffee sounds a lot bigger decision than how much do I want to put in towards my marketing budget for 25.
So it kind of comes out of this. Sometimes it's that dopamine effect. It's like, hey, I made 10 decisions in the last hour.
Yep.
Therefore, I feel that I was productive. But the reality is I didn't do anything to move the needle.
You didn't move the needle. Exactly.
You just made a bunch of trivial decisions. And it required your attention. It stole and robbed your attention to things that actually could move the needle.
I will say the counterpoint to that is in our positions, so visionary, you being the visionary, Mark, and me being the integrator, making decisions to me is like a muscle, like it's like working out. The more that I make good decisions, or the more that then it strengthens that decision making ability, and which is what I need to do. I mean, that is when you were talking about delegating things down to people, it's like, that's probably me. You've probably delegated a lot of decisions down to me that I'm still relying on you for. And so I need to strengthen that muscle of making good decisions without relying on you. You once told me that pretty early on.
Okay. So right here as we sit, so one of the examples right before we came on air, we were talking about the Christmas party. And McKinley, who's sitting right over here, who's our producer, kind of is in charge of that. And she was asking me questions. What about this? And what about that? And I kind of was short with her because she was starting to sap my mental energy, which I was trying to gear up to get ready for this podcast. So, so the reality is I should just delegate all of that. McKinley, I'm looking straight at you right now. You have total authority to do whatever you want on the Christmas party. I don't care. Tag, you're it. So she's looking at me with a weird look like, yeah, but until I make
you do care.
Until I do care.
And then we should have known that you cared.
Right.
But I think that, you know what, McKinley, I'm here for you, and I'm happy to help you make decisions. And I think that that's part of it too, right? You're delegating to some team members that may never have had that power before. And then I get to come in and say, hey, you know what? You're not alone. I got you. I'm here if you need anything. And that's the way that works.
Right. So going through the 5 choices real quick, the path to extraordinary productivity.
Oh, yeah.
The first choice, and this may sound obvious, but it's amazing how far off track we get with this. But the first one is act on the important. Don't merely react to the urgent. Okay. So, of course, this brings to mind the Eisenhower decision matrix, which a lot of people have seen. Some people may not have. The first time I saw it was in the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. I've seen it many other places since then. So I think it's fairly well quoted and often repeated in most of the business books you see. But for those who don't remember it, there are the urgent and important activities, which is I believe is in the top left-hand quadrant. Then there are the important but non-urgent, which is in the top right-hand quadrant of the matrix. And then there are the urgent but not important, bottom left. And then the urgent or not urgent and not important, which is in the bottom right. So there's these 4 quadrants. And what the matrix is trying to demonstrate is that frequently we get caught below the line, is that we frequently get caught up in things that are urgent but not important, or even worse, things that are not even urgent and not important, which we shouldn't even be on our plate to begin with. And the argument of the Eisenhower matrix is that we need to stay above the line. We need to deal with the important issues, some of which are urgent. We all know as litigators, we have urgent things that happen to us that are very important. But then we also have things that are important, but not urgent. And that's where we actually fall short, is that we ignore the important things that just aren't urgent at the moment. They don't have a deadline necessarily, but they're still important things that can move the needle. And the argument is that that's the quadrant we need to spend most of our time in as business owners, as working on the important things that are not necessarily urgent, but they're very important. The important things that are urgent, I tend to delegate to people. If I'm working effectively, I want to delegate those things to people I trust. So if it's a litigation issue coming up, it's something urgent, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to delegate that to my attorneys that I trust to do that. Maybe I can probably think of some examples of things that I delegate to you, through not necessarily delegate on a case-by-case basis, but I delegate that authority overall.
Oh, very broadly, yeah.
So I'm never going to be dealing with certain urgent and important issues because we know that that's just in your strike zone. I've delegated cybersecurity to you. Very urgent, very important, but not my strike zone. So I think that's the first choice is, where do you let your attention fall? It needs to be on the important, and don't react to the urgent. I like the second choice that the book talks about. It's like, go for the extraordinary, don't settle for the ordinary. I like it in concept. You know, it sounds really cool, you know, like Nike, just do it. You know, what the hell does that actually mean in practice? I sometimes struggle with, but it sounds good.
I think when everything is working on all cylinders, that's real easy, right? I think especially the way that you drive this firm and how we're always focused on growth and also our core values, of which excellence is one of our core values at the firm. It just keeps everything. It's very easy, I think. I've definitely, in my opinion, performed at my peak here in my 4 years because of the way you do create the firm, the focusing on the extraordinary.
So I think one of the things I would put my twist on that phrase is it's easier to go for the extraordinary when the ordinary is working really, really well.
Absolutely. You can get out of the weeds.
Right. So when your your core focus of your practice is working really, really well, that gives you the freedom, the time, the financial resources to go for the extraordinary. You know, in our case, you know, I guess the best way I can say it is our disability side of our practice is working really, really well. It creates opportunity, it creates cash flow, it creates financial stability, which allows me to take some chances in the mass tort world. Kind of going for the extraordinary, kind of going for the home run over there. That's the best example I can give of that particular phrase. But again, I just like the phrase. It's like, I love just do it. I love Nike. You know, just swoosh, just do it.
That's how we're going to get you focused again.
I know.
Like, go for the extraordinary.
Just let's go for some extraordinary stuff. Choice number 3, again, this kind of goes back to, you know, Jim Collins and 7 Habits, but it's been recycled in 5 choices. Schedule the big rocks, don't sort gravel.
I love this one.
Yeah. So this actually is filtered down into EOS terminology, the Entrepreneurial Operating System that we talk about frequently. Rocks, under that terminology, under that system, are basically our big 90-day goals.
Or quarterly goals, yes.
Quarterly goals. And every rock has to have an owner, and it has to have milestones, in other words, sub-rocks, the various smaller subsets of tasks that go into completing that big rock. But the main thing, the way 5 choices laid out, is you have to schedule your big rocks. Okay, for example, one of my big rocks this quarter is to create a bad faith trial notebook to train my lawyers on, okay? So my rock this quarter is to work on 30B6 depositions and all the ins and outs of how to conduct a 30B6 deposition, okay? Which is a more complicated, higher level thing to do than your standard just fact witness deposition. So I want to create that basic element in our trial notebook to train my lawyers on. I'm never going to get around to doing that if I don't block some time and just block out 3 or 4 hours on my schedule to just spend on focusing. Block the time, schedule on my calendar, close my door, put my do not disturb sign up, and just schedule the time to knock out that big rock. Because otherwise, I'm just sitting around sorting gravel. You know, people are coming to me, asking me questions about this, that, or the other, barging in.
Or putting interviews on your calendar.
Putting interviews on my calendar that I didn't agree to. So the gravel is all of the small minutia that you probably want to avoid at all costs. That's the stuff below the line on the Eisenhower matrix, the stuff that's not urgent and not important, or at least the stuff that's urgent but still not important.
Yep. When I'm super productive and really on my game, my planner, which I've talked about ad nauseum probably on this podcast and definitely to everyone on our team, but also the Atticus planner has what they call the top 3 things that you want to do. And that's how every planner every day has that on there. And I think that's a good way to keep your big rocks scheduled is if you know what 3 things you want to do, and one of those is your quarterly goal. If you're planning that out, and inherently you're going to get that stuff done most of the time.
Okay. You know what? As I look at this, we probably will get through all 5 choices. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to do the 4th choice. We'll take a break. And then we'll come back and wrap with the fifth choice because I think it's a good wrap up. So,
that's it. Yeah, great.
okay, so anyway, so the fourth choice as laid out in the 5 choices. Rule your technology, don't let your technology rule you. That can mean a lot of things.
Yep.
The most basic example I can see, I'm guilty of this. I've seen my wife guilty of this. I've seen employees particularly guilty of this. They're constantly on their damn phones. The technology's ruling them. I am constantly responding to emails. That's simply letting technology rule me. Okay? I've seen other staff members constantly on, I don't know what they're on, Twitter, some sort of social media. They're letting their technology rule them. In theory, email is supposed to be a productivity tool, but then, it turns into this morass of just crap. It's just another way of people to bombard me and get around my gatekeepers, is to just go directly to the email. Got an email today from an attorney asking about a referral that they'd sent over 2 years ago, okay, so now am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing today? No, I'm jumping and responding to this email that I got from this attorney. And yes, it has to be dealt with, but does it have to be dealt with right now? I allowed him to jump my day.
Well, and going back to what you said about choice number 1 and the Eisenhower matrix, it becomes above the line rather than something that just really could be scheduled out. The notifications, I think a lot of people would be a lot happier if they turn off many, like 90% of the notifications on their phone, because it does make people always, you're looking. I'm going to write my article about this later on for the actual print barrister. But my topic's going to be like all the rules that I broke this year so y'all look for it and let me know what you think about it. But one of them is going to be, and don't get mad at me, I turned off my Outlook notifications about 6 months ago and I never turned them back on.
Oh, I turned mine off years ago.
Yeah, but for my position, that was a huge step for me. I turned them off when I went on quote unquote vacation because I thought I was going to try and take a mental break. And then when I came back, I just never turned them back on. And I'm happy.
Oh my God.
I'm so much happier.
I turned off all my notifications. There's not a single notification. I think the Weather Channel is the only notification I still get just in case a tornado comes. But that's the only one that's on. So cheap plug, because you mentioned it, the Successful Barrister print newsletter. For those of you who want to get on the mailing list for the actual printed mailed copy of our beautiful snarky printed newsletter. Oh, as our producer's telling me, go to our website, successfulbarrister.com, fill out a form, and get on the mailing list there. I would prefer you just email me, because that way I can talk to you then, like, hey, what's going on?
I'm telling people not to bust in your inbox.
That's different, because that goes into a special folder. No, we're not. We're not cutting this. Not cutting this.
So I guess Mark's saying, don't let other people ruin your box, but please, listeners, please get in his.
It's different.
Now people understand.
Okay, so we did the negative, like don't let your technology rule you. Rule your technology. So how can we let our technology rule for us, or how can we rule our technology?
I don't use as much. You know what? Litify helps. I think with keeping people focused. A lot of people like digital planners. I don't like a digital planner.
I don't either.
So I need that handwriting actually to help me with so much. But I think that there are different ways that you can allow technology to help you with your productivity. I just don't use those.
So our basic productivity technology, we have 3. We have Litify, which is our case management system, which manages both our intake department and our productions department. We have Case Status, which is our client portal where we use technology to communicate with our clients. We have QuickBooks Online, which quite frankly, I hate the online version, but it is a necessary evil. That's a technology that we use. Mm-hmm. I use a lot of AI tools, particularly Chat GPT. We use Westlaw's co-counsel as well. These are technologies that can actually make us more productive, make our lives a little bit easier. Just the other day, I had to write a tough letter to a client, and I couldn't quite figure out how to phrase it. And I just dictated in the Chat GPT. I didn't use the client's name, but I said, client, blah, blah, blah. Here's my problem. This is what I need to say to him. This is the message I'm trying to convey. Please convey it in a professional message. Give me a letter. Boom, spit out a letter. I didn't change a word of it. Not a word. It was like, perfect, cut, paste, done. And I was just having the hardest time. I was sitting there staring at it for 10 minutes, trying to think of how to draft this letter. And like, I'm just going to use the chat.
Oh, I was really proud. I used Chat to come up with all these Excel formulas. You were less than impressed, but I was beyond excited. So I had 10 to 15,000 rows of data, and I needed to know, specific things when a call came through, and I needed to break it down, and I needed to parse the data, right? And rather than being stumped because I couldn't create an Excel formula, Chat created the formulas for me. It was beautiful and lovely, and all in less than 30 minutes. And then I was able to do the actual human part of analyzing it.
Yes, and that was very good, and it actually helped us
make some decisions.
Yeah. We made some strategic decisions based off the data that it put together. Just for those who out there that don't know, Chat GPT in Marc Whitehead and Associates parlance is called the Chat.
Sorry, I did abbreviate.
Yes, we simply call it the Chat because we keep stumbling over GTP, STP, ABC, whatever. It's the Chat.
So I think we're going to get to the part that I like, and we're going to figure out how to get you focused and apply some of these rules and make the most of the remaining weeks in the year.
All right, so we'll come back in just a minute, and we're going to wrap this up with choice number 5.
I'm Marc Whitehead, a lawyer, entrepreneur, and business coach. Thanks so much for tuning into the Successful Barrister podcast. We have a blast creating it, and I hope you find it helpful. If our chats have sparked your interest, I'd love to hear from you. Shoot me an email at mark@markwhitehead.com. That's Mark spelled with a C. Enjoying the Successful Barrister newsletter. Even better, let's hop on a call. I'd love to chat about how we can collaborate, share ideas, or just catch up.
Okay, so the 5th choice, as Diana pointed out to me in break, we sort of already talked about, but I'm going to read it anyway. So fuel your personal fire. Don't get burned out. Staying extraordinarily productive requires a lot of mental energy, which we talked about in the first section, which means I need to find things that stimulate my interest, that align with the firm goals and the firm vision. I need to keep my energy level up. I need to keep my sleep up. I need to keep my exercise up. I need to protect the temple. Protect the temple.
Oh, sorry, that was not as funny, but maybe.
I thought that was pretty,
So, when I was younger, I used to run from burnout to burnout, and it was a very hard crash every time. And I think I even probably started here in that same way, just running from burnout to burnout. And we would always have these types of sessions, my own little therapy session, because I was burnt out and I was absolutely no use to you, no use to the team. I was in a horrible spirits. It was just not very good. And so I think, obviously recognizing that when you go from, it's a marathon, not a sprint, which I'm going to then counteract that in just a second when I say what we're talking about now, or the last is a sprint. But it is a marathon, so you got to take care of yourself consistently so that you're not hitting that burnout phase every 6 weeks.
Right. And some people like to do that. They like to they're drama-driven people. They like to run from crisis to crisis, and it makes them feel important.
Yeah. Busy is our new thing, I think, as a society.
Yeah. Honestly, to be more productive, you should become less busy.
Absolutely. It should be controlled. I think you should have everything within your purview, and you should know that things are coming as they can. Obviously, you can't plan around everything, but I think this, for the most part, your rocks, you should know where you want to be within 2 weeks, 4 weeks. That's what the milestones are basically trying to help you get there.
I will say specifically, when I am really productive, I am less busy. Mm-hmm. Because what I'm really doing is I'm really focusing. I'm focusing on my quarterly rocks. I'm scheduling time to do them, and when I'm done, I know that I've been very productive, and I don't feel I need to dive into my email or dive into problems, because I know that I've been productive, and I can get up and walk out and go to the gym, and then go home and go have dinner with my family and, watch a basketball game, whatever it is I want to do. And I feel good about the day because I know I was extremely productive, as opposed to days where it's your hair's on fire all day, and you're frazzled and you can't get stuff done. So, all right, well, I'm just going to stay here and work a little longer. And I'm going to skip my workout. And then I get home, right on the cusp of dinner. I don't ever miss dinner. I will say that.
Priorities?
Yeah, because 2 reasons. Number 1, I like to eat. Number 2, I don't like to get yelled at by my wife. So do not miss dinner. My wife is a great cook. She loves to cook, but she gets very persnickety if you are late for dinner. Ooh, you just don't do that in my house, because that's an insult.
Actually, I think Tina and I.
Yeah, that's an insult.
That's
so we don't do
a
that.
separate therapy session about my own persnickety.
Right. So,
but we're going to talk, I think, in wrapping this up, about how we can get you focused. We're going back to our therapy session, Mark. So we've talked about the 5 choices. We've revisited the book, the Eisenhower Matrix. And so can we say 3 things are you going to do? So we've decided there are about 6 weeks left in the year. Mm-hmm. In reality, though, with holidays and your lifestyle right now, you're able to really only have 3 weeks of productivity time. You're going to hopefully take a week off for Thanksgiving and the last 2 weeks off for the year. And I know not everybody can do that, but let's just assume you can, and let's just assume you've got 3 weeks of productivity time. How are you going to maximize them?
So right now, the last 3 weeks, I'm not looking to really do anything other than plan.
Okay.
Planning and budgeting, because I want to start January off with a bang. So we do have one last EOS meeting, a day-long planning session on December the 13th. So that will be part of our planning. We have several budgeting meetings set up. So we will go through our budgeting, through our marketing budget, and all of this fun stuff. But other than that, I've already decided I'm going to do less. So I'm going to stop doing a lot of the smaller, trivial things over the last 3 weeks of the year to just focus on big picture items, planning, coming up with strategy. I'm still working on our elder law project, which we have talked about in the past.
So let's
planning that out.
We're going to make these really smart SMART goals.
Right.
So what are you going to do with regards to your calendar?
Okay.
So we're going back to choice number 3, guys. Mark's going to schedule his big rocks. What does that look like?
Okay. So we have already scheduled out a planning day with EOS. That's December 13th.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Friday the 13th.
Is it Friday the 13th?
It is.
Who the hell came up with that?
Sorry, that was me again.
That was you again. I have scheduled out budgeting time with various departments, and we're going to go over budget. So that's scheduled. That's on the books. We are going to schedule our strategic planning, just you and I.
We should do that.
Okay. We have scheduled the summit in Orlando.
We have.
Okay. That's going to be part of the planning process.
Here's what I would like to see you do. I'm just going to go ahead and cut to the therapy. This is a very bad therapy session where I'm going to tell you what you need to do. Is that what therapists do?
Personally, I think those are great therapists.
Okay,
I don't believe in the self-actualization therapy method, but
starting next week, you're going to, through the end of the year, you're going to block off 2, let's go minimum of 2 3-hour windows every week that you're in office to actually do your bad faith or your bad faith trial notebook or whatever you want to do. Because I think then by planning the rest of the year, you're going to market, I think everyone knows you're out of office those 3 weeks that we already discussed, but you're going to go ahead and plan out your time blocking. And even if, this is what I keep telling our attorneys, even if you choose not to do the bad faith trial notebook during that time block, guess what? You still have time for you. You're going to still take that mental health break. You can go work out if you want to, but that time is yours and you have claimed it, and it is no one else's to schedule trivial things on top of. Like,
I'm going to go block out the rest of my year as soon as we get done with this podcast. So nobody can jump my calendar.
Yes, sir. And how many workouts are we going to aim for every week?
2.
2. Perfect. And we're going to hope that we're going to sleep better.
Yes.
All right. I think these are very actionable things. Delegation, which is really going to set up you and your team up for the rest of 25. We're going to be consistent with our delegation.
Correct.
Awesome. I think these are very actionable things that you can do.
Okay.
And again,
how much do I owe you for the therapy session?
Oh, just, you can't afford me work. But hopefully this will just mean that a happier Mark means a happier firm.
Let's hope. All right. With that, I'm getting the high sign that we are out of time. So I want to thank everybody for listening to the Successful Barrister podcast, where legal legends are made. I'm Mark.
And I'm Diana.
And together we're the dynamic duo of law. Remember to rate and review us wherever you get your podcast, and share the podcast with your friends. Let's spread the word. And visit us at successfulbarrister.com. And be sure to visit our sponsor, Marc Whitehead Associates, a national disability law firm, at disabilitydenials.com. And with that, we're out of here.
Bye, guys. You can decide whether or not you want this quippy or serious.